Okay, good morning. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Sally Talk. I am back. I took a little break, and I think that's important, and we're going to actually talk about that. But I needed to take a break because I started this podcast. I love doing it, but I wanted to have direction. I wanted to figure out what it is I wanted to do with it. So I am back, and I have a lot of guests already scheduled all the way through February, and I think you'll be interested in them as I am. I decided I'm going to go with my instinct and intuition and invite people that I find fascinating, and so hopefully that you will also. So before we get started with my wonderful guest, Alena Bernardi, I need to just say hi, a shout out to my sponsor. Since I haven't monetized yet, I need to thank myself, the independent consultant with Arbonne International, because I sponsor my podcast. So for 40 years, we celebrated our 40th birthday this month. And for 40 years, we have taken the high road. We have stepped out and made sure that all the products that we have offered to all of our consultants and our clients are vegan, are without petroleum products, without 2,000 ingredients that are common in the market today. And we did that from the beginning. So we didn't do it because it was trendy or anything like that. We started right out of the gate. So it's an amazing company. We're now partnering with TerraCycle. So we're recycling all of our stuff so that we can send all our stuff back in a box and then make sure it goes to the right place, because there's recycling issues going on now. So anyway, Arbonne International, if you want more information about being part of this amazing company, let me know. sallyholida.arbonne.com. Arbonne, making the world a healthier place, one person at a time. All right, so here we go. So Alena Bernardi is my guest, and we have a great story. We met, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
We met on Instagram. We're an Instagram
my
relationship.
My favorite place, Instagram.
And what was fun was that we just happened, I'm trying to remember, you saw something I posted, I saw something you posted, and then I knew you were doing your one-woman show, Swipe the Musical, and so then it was like, you have to come see it. So I brought some friends, I went, saw it, loved it. And so then I was like, oh, you need to be on my podcast. And when we were preparing for the podcast, and I wanted to say, we've already done one episode. Mm-hmm. So that episode, if you want to hear about Alena's, like how her story and her journey, I have a whole another episode where we talked about that. It's great. It's a great episode. Mm-hmm. And she's just very inspirational. It's great to hear how she's like navigating through as a woman in showbiz. But, while we were talking about that, a lot of things we found in common were a lot of our belief and how strong we feel about self-development and all the reading we've both done and spiritual mindset and all that other stuff. And so while we were doing that last one, we said we should do a podcast just about that.
Yes.
And that's what today is.
That's what today is. And I can't tell you, I'm so excited. Because I was saying to other people, like, I've never been asked to come on and air and talk about this stuff.
Right. Because normally you would come out and you would talk about like what you're up to and everything else, which you will at the end.
Right,
You'll get to say it.
I will plug everything.
Right. But I think it's really important, and this is why starting off on 2020 and starting back on my next, grouping of podcast episodes, it's crucial that you work on yourself.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crucial. Like the only thing I think we're put on this planet to do is to work on ourselves. Like that's really the only thing. And then if it can spill out and help others, great. You know?
Yeah, because you can't spill out and help others unless you work on yourself.
That's right.
Right?
Right, exactly. And unless you're like on top of, you have to, and also just getting to know yourself
and
too.
What you want and what's important to you. Mm-hmm. Like what intuitively you feel like your purpose is. When you discover that, then it's like, because I think purpose, like that is an internal thing, but then it also spills out, right? Because if a true purpose and an aligned purpose, and when you discover something that is like authentic to who you are, it will naturally contribute to those around you.
Exactly.
Right. And I mean, I guess I can put it back to my show, but I think that there's like there's 3 areas of my life that I'm very focused on, which I think are like music education and children, and being like an innovator in music education, empowering women to live their truest lives, and then like my own personal like artist development and my songwriting and like my voice and, you know, learning as many instruments as I can, like producing theater and film, like those are the kind of the 3 things that I'm focused on. So it's like myself, the children, and then like my sisters, my women, my goddesses, the divine goddess females, the givers of life on this planet. Oh my
That's
goodness,
right.
how
That's
amazing are women. And so I think what I've discovered personally is like when I'm living this true purpose of like helping the children or like creating works of art that inspire women, it's like I'm filled up, but it naturally contributes to the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I get amazing opportunities to come on live and do something like this and talk about these topics. You know what I mean? It's just like everything just starts to like kind of flow.
Right.
In that way.
Yeah, we're all part of the immortal fabric.
Yeah.
You know, and if anything, you got to hold up your thread, you know, you're part of it. And if you can just keep it together, because we go through good times and bad times.
Yes,
we go through struggles. Of
what it is.
Yep. And suffering and stuff like that. But if we can just focus inward and strengthen ourselves so we're able to make it through that, we don't pull it all down. You know, we're able to hold up our own. But sometimes it's just you. If you could just get up in the morning. Have you seen Afterlife? Have you seen the show Afterlife, the Ricky Gervais show? Oh my gosh, so good. But it's basically...
I'm a little on a television hiatus.
It's okay. It's okay. But I'm just saying, it just hit me, and I was... But that's like basically, it's just, you know, a man surviving after the death of his wife and him just pulling himself back up.
Yeah.
And then it's really not... He doesn't really have to do anything for anybody else. He just has to pull himself up, and that's okay. Because you're valuable. You know, so it's okay to put your 100% attention on you to pull yourself up.
Right. And I think what's interesting is like, it's all, I invite everyone to give it a shot, like really focusing on what it is that you really want and going internal and discovering. And, you know, I do think getting yourself out from in front of the screen is probably a good idea. I think we use all these streaming platforms as a way to... Okay, I'm just going to say it, all right? It's like, I am so in support of consuming content that fills your soul up, whether it's on a streaming platform or a podcast or like an audiobook or reading or listening to music and stuff. But like, I think we have to intuitively look to see like, am I doing this because it's fulfilling my life and it's making me feel better and it's aligning with my purpose, or am I doing this so I'm like avoiding looking internally? Because I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I was thinking about this morning, is looking internally is incredibly uncomfortable. I'll go on social media and I'll post this like inspirational video. Oh my God, I'm going to go on Sally Talk and I'm going to talk about, you know, self-development. And it seems like really great. Like, oh my goodness, Alena's going to talk about this really sunny, shiny thing. It's when you're actually in the thick of like going internally and looking at what you really want and dealing with that. Like, it's not sunshine.
No.
At the end of the road, it most definitely is.
Yes.
But like, so I'm going to tell a story.
Oh,
Can
yeah,
I
please.
do that? God, I can't believe I'm talking about this. So over the Christmas break, I stayed home in LA. I call LA my home now. I love Los Angeles. For the first time ever. And I had multiple church gigs and nursing home gigs. That was kind of like my singing work. And then I also took on a lot of pet sitting gigs because one of the partners, Trey Sogley, at a theater company that I run, he's connected with a pet sitting agency and kind of shot me some work, right? So, and no one was home really. I had a couple friends that were home in LA, but I spent a lot of time alone for about a week and a half. Mm-hmm. In a way that I've never had to be that alone. And I had to like sit with myself because I was like preparing for a gig, singing, or like driving all around and taking care of different pets and stuff. And I decided that I was going to listen to the full Beatles catalog as like my listening homework. So I was like, I had the Beatles in my ear as I was doing all of this. And I got to the song on Sgt. Pepper, She's Leaving Home. And it's all about like, it's all about, you know, it's interesting because there's so much like romantic love, and I'm actually really interested in romantic love. My show's about romantic love, but this song is about a different kind of love, right? A family's love for a daughter and the daughter leaving, you know, the family and stuff. And it's like something, I wish I could remember the name of the person who arranged the Beatles albums, but if you're a Beatles fan, you know, it's like the sixth Beatle or whatever.
Oh, George Martin?
Beatle. Yeah, George, the fifth Beatle.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the arrangement is just so epically incredible, and I cried. I listened to, I put it on repeat, and I allowed myself to cry. I think it might have been off and on for 2 days while I was in between gigs. So I wasn't crying, obviously, on my gigs, but maybe I'd be on the way to the gig crying, listening. And maybe I'd be feeding a pet and crying. And I kind of just said to myself, like, you're obviously feeling something. Let yourself cry right now. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. Whatever this insanely divine arrangement of this gorgeous song is making you feel it.
Had you grieved moving to LA? Like, had you ever been really homesick? Because you seem kind of like you're like make the best of thing kind of person. I'm like that way too. And so I was so homesick. Yeah. And the first time I didn't go home for Christmas, it was like, it hit me. And I had been in Los Angeles for years, but it hit me that because I don't think I'd really grieved my move, you know, because I was like making the best of it. I think sometimes that's in our society.
On my projects that like I don't. That's one of the things I'm trying to do.
Our society tries to like, that's the sugarcoating thing. That's the thing like, oh, come on, you know, buck up. You know, you gotta, you know, that's where we don't really understand what to do with the suffering or with the grief or whatever. We don't know what to do with it. So we go, oh, let's try not to do it.
Well,
it's
then
like,
it just manifests in like
you gotta do
self-destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
sits around in somewhere else. So it's probably grieving, moving out of, you know, and it's just kind of delayed.
Yeah, I was grieving. I was so homesick. I was, you know, I think that writing a show about my love life and my relationships and stuff, which is like, Swiped has the blanket of a comedy. But if you really think about what Pauly goes through and what I went through, it's like traumatic. And it was traumatic going through all of that, you know? But of course, when you deliver the message of you have to love yourself in a way that's like accessible for people or digestible for people, you put it in comedic form.
That's right. That's right.
So, I think that it was like leaving my family. It was like missing my parents. I miss my dad. Dad, if you're listening, I love you and I miss you. I think he's listening. Maybe, I don't know. I know my aunt and my mom are. Hello, I love you. You know, I was like missing my family and like my mom was in Detroit. It was just yeah. And then also just like I'm working through, and I feel like part of that time in my life, that week and a half, I had to go so internal and introspective. I'm working through my self-worth and self-love because I had some stuff happen this past year. This is part of me being vulnerable. I'm just going to talk about it. Where like I had feelings for a person and they weren't reciprocated, and I had to deal with that. My sadness about it didn't have anything to do with them. My sadness about it was me feeling like I was sad because I felt like that meant that I wasn't lovable.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And like really like being with that feeling and being with like, okay, so what's happening right now is you're not mad at the person. It's not the person's fault or problem or whatever. They're just on their own path. But like the fact that what's coming up for me out of this situation is all these feelings of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not blah, blah, blah. I'm blah, 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 blah. All the internal voices, like whatever it says when like something maybe doesn't work out with somebody romantically. Mm-hmm. And I really like took the time to like sit and like let those voices play out. Okay, so that means that I'm crying over Sgt. Pepper because I'm having to like deal with it, you know? And it's like whatever meditative like thing that we have to do to like go through that.
Music is huge for me.
Yeah.
Music is really huge for me for,
like, exactly,
therapeutic.
for those things where it's
that's
like,
why they wrote it.
You know, exactly. And like, I think the reason why I wanted to listen to the Beatles was because, let me tell you this, but that is such a funny trajectory. So the beginning of December, I went to Detroit. I actually did go and see my family, but it wasn't during Christmas. Mm-hmm. So I went and saw them at the beginning of December. And on the way home, I watched that movie Yesterday, which is all about like how the Beatles, like they disappear, but then like this guy, British guy,
I wanted to see it. I really wanted to see it.
So everybody watched Yesterday, but I was so fascinated as a songwriter by like, wow, like the message of that movie is that the Beatles music is so timeless that like you can decades later release it, you know, in the reality where it hasn't been heard before, which is the reality of the movie, mm-hmm. and it would still be hits, you know, and it'd still be just as impactful. Mm-hmm. And so I was fascinated by that. So I was like, oh my God, I have to get like deep into the Beatles. And I've gotten really close with some like composer friends out here in LA, and they're very into the Beatles, and they've introduced me to a lot of music. Jack and Benny Lipson, they're musical theater composers too, good friends of mine. And so I just like started just consuming it, but then it took me on this emotional journey where I had to really go internal and look at all these feelings of self-worth. And I think all of this that I'm talking to you about is me surrendering to my intuition. I've been really checking in every action that I take, every move that I make. I just quoted that. I'll look even like on the plane. I was like, what do I want to watch? I really want to watch Yesterday. What do I want to listen to? I really want to listen to the Beatles. Do I want to put She's Leaving Home on for repeat and then just sit here and cry? I really want to do that. And I did it. And then I really believe that God, universe, source, whatever, will guide you to healing, will guide you to what it is that you need to consume, will guide you if you will just be open and willing to listen.
And see the signs.
Yeah,
because it goes in front of you. I absolutely agree with that. I so agree with that. And I think that's also you getting to know your conscience. It's getting to know yourself.
Yes.
Because you're going to need to know that part of you, because that part of you is the one that's going to see you through. Because I think that's the one that holds all those decisions and starts making good judgment for you down the road. Because I'm older, I'm going to be 57 this year, and I've always felt like I've had a good relationship with my own conscience. Because I'll listen to it. Should I do it? Your intuition. I think your intuition is the conscience.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, and your conscience is saying to you, maybe you should do that. Last time you did it. And like 9 out of 10 times it's right. But there is one time maybe you go, you know what, I don't know if I think you're right. I think I'm going to try this. Because before I did it, but maybe if I do it this way, it'll work. And then if it does work, then your conscience goes, okay, and it recollaborates.
We're always recalibrating. I think that part of that journey that you're talking about, listening internally, listening to your conscious, listening to what it is, like looking in whatever, whether we don't know what's actually happening in the spiritual world, but whether it's looking inside or whether you're actually looking out for answers, I don't know. It's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That whole process does result in like a spiritual like recalibration, because every time you take those new actions, you're having to like, all of it's like okay, great. So now I'm this person that does this thing because I followed my intuition.
Yeah. And I'm happy and it works. I can feel good and
Right.
it feels good that I did it. So
Yeah.
that's really, I think so. I think that's why that's one of the things that you can do is really start getting to know you. Really get to know you. Why do and don't fight things that you like to do. And don't use language like, oh, I'm so, I'm so.
We're linguistic beings.
Yeah. And we beat ourselves up with it.
Yeah.
Why do I do that all the time? Or I'm such a weirdo. Why am I sitting around and, I do the same thing. I go down rabbit holes and something will fascinate me and I literally go down the rabbit hole.
Oh, I'm a rabbit hole junkie.
I love this. You like this one. This is a crazy one. I had on the Saturday opera. There's the Saturday opera on KUSC, right? Because I love opera.
We've talked about
this.
Oh my God,
did I tell you this story already? But I listened to Wagner.
So.
I never listened to Wagner. So one of my things is...
I think we did, but I really actually want you to talk.
Yeah, just real quick, though. It might have been on the old one. But anyway, I was walking around the house listening to the end of the... Oh, you're going to have to say it. Yep. And it's when she climbs
on... so epic.
Yeah, she climbs into the spire and she burns and all that. And I'm listening to it, so I'm not even watching this. And they had described the libretto before. And I'm like in the bathroom, cleaning the bathroom, and it's the end.
So intense.
And I'm like weeping.
Yeah, weeping.
So
just like weeping.
Like really weeping. And so then I went, I've got to find this. So I go on Spotify and I find it, and then I've got to download the whole thing.
Yeah. Whole.
Then I had to listen to it. And then I'm like, wait. And I'm like listening and I'm watching and reading the whole story and all the mythology of it and the symbolization. And I think that's one of the things I think we get away from too, is that we've really gotten away in our storytelling. And I think Disney's kind of can be held accountable for this, I think, somewhat. Is them pulling out the suffering aspects of things. Now, they'll show the person in the Disney movie
being like, I'm upset about something.
Right, with the dead mother at the beginning, and everyone goes, oh, why are the parents always dead? Like in Frozen, the parents die. But it's that actual, like, really, like, understanding, like, what sadness and suffering and grieving and things, on how you could grieve over all sorts of things. In mythology and old mythology, it's all over the place. In the old Bible stories, whether you believe in the Bible or not, the Bible is a powerful book that's been around for a long time. Took like 17,000 years to write, and then it's been around a long time. So the stories are really important, and they deal with the suffering aspect of it. And we really, as a society, I think, try to get away from the suffering. And so we think if we don't think about it,
we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it.
It's not dinner table conversation. It's not podcast conversation.
Exactly. We don't sit around and talk about it, and we don't talk about how that's and then also, because then when we do it, we're like, so probably when you went through this, and this is just me speculating.
Please.
But I mean, over the holiday, you probably never really grieved about moving away from home, and so you were tapping into it. But you've done enough work on yourself that you didn't think this was strange, or you weren't worried about it, or you didn't beat yourself up about it.
There wasn't even a tiniest bit of concern that if I went down that rabbit hole and let myself feel those things, that I wasn't going to be able to come out of it and perform effectively in my life on the tasks that are important to me.
Exactly.
It wasn't even like a tiniest bit of concern about it. I knew I have this much time to cry about this. I'm going to take this much time, and then I'm going to go sing my gig. And I'm going to kill it. And I did.
And you did, but probably because you're tapping into that emotion,
It's so interesting. Yeah. I sang. So one of the things that I do a lot of different kinds of things in the performance, education realm or whatever, all music and art. Is I sing for nursing homes, and I sing for the memory care units, so like the dementia patients, and there's like scientific evidence that singing old jazz and show tunes, this is something I just started this past year, old jazz and show tunes has them activate memories. So a lot of them that maybe like can't even remember their family members, but they remember all these lyrics to these old Rodgers and Hammerstein songs, right?
I believe it.
We do all these we do a Sound of Music segment. I sing from Carousel. Just the greatest, the greatest tunes ever written. And so afterwards, my concert yesterday, I had a really good concert that I sang. I sang at Garden of the Palms on La Brea in West Hollywood, or on Santa Monica in West Hollywood. And she looked at me and she said, "Can I give you one word to describe your performance?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And she said, "Hypnotic." And I was like, oh, and I almost started crying because I was like, God, I know what she's saying. And so what I said to her is like, I do my best to have us all transport somewhere when I'm performing. I do, that is an intention of mine. Right. And then she said, "But let me tell you why I said that." And I was like, okay. And she said, "Because it was an inner beauty that was coming out that made it that way." And I was like, wow. I was like, her saying that, is speaking to what you're talking about, with that work where it's like, I am doing the work to be settled and love who I am on the inside, such that when I'm doing what I do for my job, which is give myself to the audience, they can see who I am inside, Right. And it's like...
And that's what an artist is.
Yeah. And it was just like, wow. When she said that, I was like, okay, Alena, it's working. Cry. Listening to She's Leaving Home. It's working.
But that's what an artist is. An artist is somebody who takes and looks at life, right? Experiences it, sees certain things about it, and then shares it back with the people. I was reading something, and then I want to talk about like what you've read and some of your most inspirational. We should actually
talk about materials.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll do that.
Yeah.
But then we'll move into that through this. Is I was reading something about how there's like the artists and then the non-artists, and I think and it was basically saying everybody's an artist in some way. There are people that kind of like work on the infrastructure of the world. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that keep this whole thing running.
Yeah,
it's the people who build the buildings and the people who work it so that we can survive. Mm-hmm. And we're healthy and everything's water's clean and all that good stuff, right? And we get our food and all that. And those people don't have the time to be the ones that express what's going on in the world emotionally and everything else. So the artists are the ones that do that. So the artists are the ones that are sitting there looking and thinking and experiencing things, and then sending them back and seeing what they've seen and what they've experienced and what they come out of it.
And you're validating the human experience emotionally.
And the two, in a good society, the two respect each other.
Oh my gosh, you're giving me chills.
Yeah, the two really need to respect each other. Yeah, because the ones that are able to they need to show gratitude that they're able to be the ones that perform and be the ones that get to live their dream of artistic expression. They need to be grateful for the ones that, put the stop light up, when they were driving to their, those people. But then the people who do the spotlight and everything else have to respect the fact that the artists, so when they go to the movies on the weekends or they hear a song that moves them or something opens them up, that person did all that work. It took them a long time for them to write She's Leaving Home, to sit there and go, oh wow, that's it. In just a song, they get this whole lifetime of,
love and pain and suffering.
And it's this beautiful like combination of the two in a society. So it's like it's just interesting to make sure that everyone respects each other's contribution. Because it's really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, and what I'm hearing and what you're saying is exactly what we began this conversation with, was that purpose thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So tell me a couple of things. What are things that have really that really have helped you kind of shape?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can go back. I mean, so in 2014 in June, I took the Landmark Forum.
Oh, okay.
So that was like kind of my introduction into like the transformational ontological self-development world. And so I did that. And then throughout the past couple of years, I completed like their curriculum for living. So I did their self-expression and leadership course, which is how I kind of launched my theater company. And then I got on the front page of BroadwayWorld.com in 2017. That was like a big deal for me when I produced and music directed and starred in my first kind of big musical with the company, Proof Dot Closer, who I said before I ran with Trace Oakley. And that was on the 20th Century. That show was a Cy Coleman, Comden and Green show. And then after that I did their like premier leadership program. And I learned a lot about how to kind of, in doing that, the leadership program, I understood and I finally learned how to tap into my energy and kind of use my own personal energy to, this sounds really esoteric, but I'm just going to say it. Like, when you're in front of a large group of people, and I practiced it with the children. So I'd have like 50 kids in front of me, right? I kind of started to understand from a leadership standpoint how to like look at the entire audience, and I did it with the children, and like kind of pull the focus, pull the energy so that they were engaged and listening, and we kind of have this like energetic thing, like we're all in this together. Now you've seen me perform, so you know that like I also use that same kind of thing when I'm performing. So it was great because I learned how to do that in that leadership course, and then I was able to take it out, really contribute to the children, because you know when everyone's making music together and we're all connected, it's really beautiful with the kids, and then also as a performer. And so after that, I moved on from Landmark, and I was like, I want to expand. I want to learn different kind of self-development methodologies. And so I'm really grateful. Carly Panza, who runs her theater company with me, she also was involved with the work with Landmark, and then her and I moved on together. And so we kind of started this journey of like our own self-development kind of, I guess you could quote unquote course together. So what we did is we have a call at 9 a.m. every single morning, and we like create how our day is going to go. We like get really, connected to each other because we're really connected to having this, beautiful feminine future in entertainment. That's what her and I are creating. And so we started reading different audiobooks together, but then it was like a book club. So we talk about them because we both carry the philosophy that it's like, it doesn't matter if you consume the content. If it's just swirling around in you and not living outside of you in the universe, then it's like, it's not going to make as much of a difference for your life.
Right.
So, it's like almost having that accountability buddy where it's like, oh, wow, like I was reading this and then I got this out of it. Like the first book we read was The One Thing. So I really suggest that. I can even send Sally like a lot of these links if you wanted to post them.
Oh, please, yeah.
So we started with The One Thing, which really has you like look at your to-do list or your task list, your life, or everything that you really like is important to you. And like the whole book takes you on this journey of narrowing down, getting rid of all the bull. I'm not going to swear because I don't swear. I try not to swear online. Okay? Right, getting rid of all the bull. And looking at what's really important to you. And I think that I read The One Thing prior to writing Swiped. So I feel like The One Thing, and I don't remember the author, but I'll link it, had me discover musical theater. Because it was kind of like, oh, I write pop music. So I do have a pop album that's a pop instrumental rock album, whatever, on, I shouldn't say whatever. It's a beautiful, masterful piece of work on Spotify.
Language is important.
Right, exactly. And then at my theater company, I didn't like kind of make the connection until I read that book that I was like, oh my gosh, musical theater is my thing, right? So then I discovered that. And then her and I, this is the one that I'm going to like there's two that I'm going to hands down say have been the most crucial in me discovering all of this stuff. It's The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. I don't know if you've heard of it before. Mm-mm. Basically, it's kind of structured. She, I think, went through Alcoholics Anonymous, and she structured the book like a 12-week program, but for uncovering your creativity and for quote-unquote blocked artists. I didn't actually consider myself a blocked artist. I was writing Swiped when I did The Artist Way. But I always stand and take on that, like, there's always something to gain from any sort of self-development, regardless of whether or not I'm feeling like I need that particular breakthrough at the moment.
Right.
And Carly was really
and I think it's good. I think it's good to recognize if you have something.
Yeah.
You might not know you do something, and they say, "Oh, you do this," and you go, "Oh, I do that."
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. That
You
you're
don't
not even
realize
present
that.
to.
Yeah, you don't really
Exactly.
realize that helps you.
Right.
So this way you can kind of harness it and recognize it and understand it.
100%. And so so I did the 12-week course program with Carly. Her and I had like check-in meetings, and there's exercises on each single week. And what's amazing about it, what I love it, is she like has you go on like an artist date every week. So it's like you have to block out at least 2 hours a week for you to like go to a thrift shop or go to a park and journal or go and like people watch, like just normal human things. Because I think her point was, if I were to intellectualize it, like her point was is that like an artist, like you're saying, like looks at the people, looks at what they're feeling, and then is able to like give it out to the world somehow. Well, if you're not doing the work of like being on this beautiful planet, you know, consuming what this beautiful planet has to offer, then yeah, it can be, you can maybe be blocked, or it can be difficult to produce art, or you cannot be inspired or something, right?
Right.
So she has you look at your past, like, what are 10 things that you wanted to do as a 5-year-old? Write them down. And I was like, I wanted to be an archaeologist. And I would like acknowledge these things. And then, you know, she had us like cook our favorite meal from our childhood. So now I'm like really into like cooking raw vegan desserts. That's like my favorite thing to do, because I love the idea of like a dessert being not unhealthy. Like so you don't have this experience when you're eating it, like you feel bad about yourself, or you're do like a negative conversations.
Right.
Like a raw vegan dessert, you're just like, oh, it's like healthy and it's like good. So anyways, so I started doing that. So like there were some like magical things that came out of like doing that experience in the artist way. And then the next one I'll say is Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. Boom. Everybody read Big Magic. So good.
When is that one? Is that one after Eat, Pray, Love?
Yeah.
Was it the next one?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Because I loved Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay, so your next book has to be Big Magic.
Okay. I'll put it on my reading list.
I need to talk to you about it.
Oh, okay. That's great.
It's fantastic. So
I love her.
It's about creativity specifically, pretty much. And she goes through her whole like journey of like becoming a professional writer. But she also has these like, she's really great because she like is clear on like what you have to do in reality to make your dreams happen, you know, however many hours she wrote and the projects that she wrote, and how she had to like, sometimes she had to give up her ego and like cut stories down that she didn't want to cut down, like just like fascinating stuff, right? And then she also talks about ideas. And she talks about how you can open your mind up to the universe or God or source, goddess, whatever, and you can get ideas, and they're yours if you do something about it. And if you don't, they go back, and somebody else might take that idea.
Right.
And it's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
And I love that concept. I feel like I'm part of the reason, so this is great because it's a little bit of a bow on what we're talking about, but like part of the reason why I love this whole journey of self-development and reading these books and having conversations about these books, so all of the distinctions and the philosophies and the theories like live outside in the universe and not just inside my body and my brain, is because I feel like the more I open up, the more I get in tune, the more I understand who I am, I just start to like get so many ideas. I get ideas for people that I love, and I'll send people like marketing inspiration ideas, or I'll get ideas about like, you know, like a song I want to write, or a project I want to do, or a book I want to write. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm just filled up with inspiration all the time, you know?
Right.
And that experience is like, oh, it's so awesome.
Right.
And I want that for everybody, to be honest, you know?
Well, because I think everybody has their own spin. You know, that's what I was, you know, more of like reading about like just the history of the world. The fact that when you and I are sitting here, there were so many people that were able to, and more women than men. It's kind of an interesting thing. You have more women in your ancestral chart. People always think it's the both, but for some reason, more women survived. Like more women because they had because of having the children. And you know, and to give men credit, men did a lot to protect women so they could have children. So there was like, I
am a man fan.
Yeah, it wasn't all,
I love men.
You know, beating up on women, because women had to be, you know, childbirth was the number one cause of death until just recently. So like yesterday. So, but anyway, but that's the thing. It's like, we're from all of these people, and our DNA is from all these people. So you have to think like, there's something all connected in that we're tapping into. And I think
we
like
are completely tapping into, I really believe it's all cyclical. Yes. It's the
Yeah.
past, it's the future, it's the present.
and so we
like-
have we're such a unique, each person is such a unique being. So yeah, you get these like, if you can channel in, I was thinking about when you're talking about the Beatles, one of my favorite stories is Paul McCartney when he wrote Yesterday. Now I was alive when Yesterday came out, pretty much, or pretty close to it, when literally everybody sang Yesterday. So like on every variety show, all of them, Merv Griffin, like all of them, everybody sang Yesterday because it was the most popular song, ever. Just totally tapped into everybody.
Exactly.
Everybody recognized it.
Right. That's the thing
It's
about
just
them.
everybody.
Yes.
It tapped into all of our
Yes,
whatever.
all the whole collective
He
consciousness
dreamed
was
it.
like this.
He dreamed it. He woke up one morning.
Of course,
he
that's
woke,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, he woke up
He
one
did it from
morning
the ether.
in the middle of the night, and he wrote it all down. And then the next morning, he was kind of like, okay, I lifted this from someone. Because his dad listened to a lot of jazz, and he lifted the melody from somewhere. He goes, I have to be careful, because this just came to me. I can't, this has to be somewhere in my, and it's got to be. And he said in the interview that I saw him in, he said he's still looking for that melody that he lifted it from. But he didn't. And so, and then when you listen to it, and there's a recording on YouTube of him the first time he walked out on Ed Sullivan, and he just, sang it. He said, well, I wrote this song. Here we go. And he sings it. It's silent, and in all of the Ed Sullivan stuff, and when they traveled that time and everything else, they all scream through all the songs, right? But the only song they don't scream through is Yesterday. And when you listen to the lyrics, we've all heard it a million times, when you go back and really listen to it like you did, you really listen to it, all my troubles seem so far away, now they're here to stay, why she had to go. I mean, when you're listening to it, it's so like taps into exactly how you feel when that happens. But he had figured out, Paul McCartney by that time,
I know.
had figured out a way to take what he got and share it.
Yeah.
And that's Paul McCartney. Now that's not me. I'm not going to write
And that's
Yesterday,
his particular
but I'm going to do
filter.
something else. Yeah.
We're all different filters of whatever's going on.
Right. So the self-improvement and reading the books and finding the books that speak to you and everything else. Audible is really funny. That's been a revelation to me because I kind of thought
That's what
it.
I do pretty much exclusively.
I thought it for a while because I'm kind of old-fashioned, and I would say,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, book," and "Oh, the feel of books," and "Oh, the smell of a book," and all that. But the truth was I wasn't reading that many books, and I would hear about people whipping through books, and I'd go, "How did they whip through all those books?" Well, maybe it's because I'm not really that much of a reader. I need to multitask. My brain needs to do kind of two things at once. So I started getting into Audible. I bought the membership, and then I started doing Audible.
I feel like we're an Audible sponsorship.
No,
right
and
now.
I went through books now. So my
Me too. I listen to them on like faster speed too, so I can even get through them faster.
Oh, I'm not there yet.
You'll get there, girl. You
Yeah,
talk
I
fast
might be-
like me.
My brain might be too. But anyway, I'll clean the whole house, and
Yeah.
the next thing you know, I'm done with the book.
Exactly. It's
so
fabulous.
what I've decided, my New Year's resolution was, because I'm good at reading a lot of nonfiction and a lot of those kind of things.
Yeah, I do
I've
that, too.
decided this year I was gonna read fiction because I kind of sit around at dinner parties and people will bring something up and I'll go, oh right, and I'm old enough to know enough about the book that I can like kind of nod and smile. But the truth is, in my head, I'm like, you didn't read that. You never read that book. So that's why I was telling you I
love
read
it.
Lord of the Flies. I've been reading a lot of like,
I love this.
I did.
I'll have to get your list off.
Yeah, like classics.
Yeah.
Like I did.
That's what I wanna do.
Farewell to
Yeah,
Arms.
so
Yeah. So I'm going through like all of those. I'm going to do the Steinbecks and everything, and also I want to read them as an adult, as an older person.
Interesting with your
Not a high schooler.
consciousness in this in this
Yeah,
reality,
not in high school. Because when I was in high school, we read Great Gatsby like 4 times.
Yeah.
I remember reading Last of the Mohicans like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fantastic. And I remember my friends reading it in high school and hating it. So I'm kind of like, I want to go back and look at it, from the artist perspective of this was something that they put together. and
Yeah,
they
like,
wrote
what were they
it.
thinking?
Why
What
did
were
why
they
did they
feeling?
write
Why
that?
did they write that? What
Yeah.
idea did they get?
And
What
why
was
do
their
they?
inspiration?
And
Yeah.
why is it a classic?
Why is
why is it
yeah,
literally
why
such
did
a
it
classic?
live on?
Exactly.
That's what I'm so interested in. Truly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do they tap into, and why does it resonate with everyone?
Why?
What's the story that resonates with everybody? Because we all resonate, because we've been listening to stories ever since the cavemen came back and painted something on the wall and said, if you hit the mastodon, behind the leg instead of under the head, and here's the painting to show you how to do it. That's how long it's been going on. So and the better storytellers and the better painters are the ones that survive it, and their stuff survives it because it's still relevant. Mm-hmm. So how did that even happen? So it is cool to think of it that way. Yeah. But everybody, all those people, Paul McCartney, all of them, when you hear him talk about when he was a kid, he was a kid.
He's a kid.
He'd run down the school. He lost his mom when he was 14. But he's just like all of us. He just somehow figured out, through his inspiration, through his father, whoever, people inspired him to figure out who he was.
Lennon and stuff too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
I discovered
and,
who I am through
like
Carly,
you said,
through
exactly.
you.
It's accountability partner is really important.
That right person.
It's really important, I think, to surround yourself with people who want the best for you.
Yes, exactly.
That really, and you want the best for them. Mm-hmm. And, not worrying so much about people who you wouldn't be friends with anyway. Like if somebody, it's not working, it's just okay. And you can wish them well. But if they don't really want the best for you, and you're not really, you really want it, because when you have that, you really know what it is, and that you really need to have that around you. So is there what book are you reading right now?
So I have been consuming lots of music lately. I kind of put myself in a musical hole, but I'm ready to get out of it.
So you listen to all the Beatles? Is that what, ever since? Because it's true. There's some
I started with their first album in the 60s or whatever. Yeah, so I did that, and then I went on a trajectory, and I did all these church gigs, like I said, during the holidays. So I started listening to Bach's B minor Mass, and started getting into all of these. I'm kind of fascinated by the idea of a Catholic Mass and how that was a thing that composers were commissioned to write. Mm-hmm. That fascinates me, because those if you listen to Mozart's Requiem and Bach's B minor Mass and
or Mozart's Mass in C.
Yeah. I mean, it's
beautiful.
just wow, you were paid whatever that was your living wage probably at the time for you to create this masterful godly, universally whatever work of art, so that people could be inspired to be spiritually enlightened or something. To me, that's so fascinating.
Well, and they thought they were given a gift. A lot of them were very deeply religious men, and they really felt like they were given a gift and felt like they needed to share
honor.
it.
I mean, even me, I feel with my voice and stuff, and obviously no one here is hearing me sing, so please look me up. I do think that
she has a beautiful voice.
Thank you. I do feel like I was, I'm trying to honor whatever it is that.
If you go on her Instagram, she'll sing you a lullaby.
That's true. I do lullaby times a couple times a week,
and they're my favorite songs. Yes, I love those songs.
They're all the classics. So I went on that journey, and then I recently have been obsessing over Ben Platt's album. I just said this on another thing yesterday too. Ben Platt is amazing. Oh, you have to listen. So
okay.
Anyways, right now, the next book that I'm reading is going to be Burnout. Carly and I have been really fascinated with the feminine journey as an entrepreneur. So there's lots of books like Kate Northrup. Do you know who she is? Mm-mm. She wrote Do Less, which is a fabulous book.
Oh, I've seen it.
Exactly.
I've seen it. Okay.
So you'll love it. So it's all about being a female entrepreneur, discovering your priorities, how to not overwork yourself in a patriarchal society where this whole idea of grinding and hitting the pavement and working super hard is an accolade. It's it's like getting rid of this like concept that it's like the hustle and the grind is something to be like cheered on or something, I guess you could say.
Right.
So
right. It's like do less, be more.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what's really important to you.
And
you know?
also, I think we were talking about this just before we started, so that we made sure we talked about it on air. Was that I think women, and I've watched it.
So here we are.
Because I've watched it. Yeah, I've watched it because I started working when I was 15, but then started working in a corporate world, and I was around a lot of men working, and women who were becoming attorneys and stuff like that, and everything was starting because it was opening up because women were educating themselves and starting realizing that was an option that they could have. And I do think that one of the mistakes that women have made, and I've watched it, is that they think they're supposed to act like men. They think they're supposed to, they think they're supposed to be successful. And I would watch women attorneys and stuff like that, felt like they had to act like men or they wouldn't be successful. And I do think that there's something to be said about that women are different and women need to be.
We're like hormonally different.
Yeah, and we're the ones. And so I was reading Lord of the Flies, and I was listening to the author read it, which was fascinating. Old English man reading, and it was cool. And in the beginning, he explained that the reason Lord of the Flies is a bunch of boys on an island is because it was the best way to show how to civilize human beings. Women aren't part of that because women are already civilized.
Yeah.
Because women basically are naturally civilized because they have to take care of the children. They were the ones that had their.
What I keep coming back to. It's like what I would love to create with my life and with my trajectory as an artist in the work is to have women just really understand and really own the fact that like we are the mothers, we are the caretakers. You know, it's like. That's who we are. Exactly like what you're saying, you know? I don't want female artists. Now, granted, I'm all about self-expression. So if this is something that's authentically a self-expression to you, go for it. But I don't like the idea that women and young women and female artists or whatever have to feel like they have to over-sexualize themselves or put themselves in kind of like objectifying situations or create objectifying content in order for them to be successful. That's how I see that in my world. And then in the corporate world, you see women feeling like they have to masculize themselves in order to be successful.
Right.
When it's like, really, we are the goddess, divine creators of life on planet Earth. You know? Like, it's like when I had a situation the other night where it's like, this guy, oh my gosh. Well, I mean, like, nobody's going to know who he is, so it doesn't matter, right? Like, you know, drinking way too much and hitting on this girl or something. And you could tell she was being really nice about it. She was like, oh, I don't really, ha, 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 ha. Like, kind of like going along with it, but then somehow pulled herself away. And I, like, sat myself down, like, right in between the two of them. I was like, hi, how are you? Introduced myself, right? Looked him dead in the eye. Because my intention when I look people who are misbehaving dead in the eye, it's like, yeah, do you see your mother in my eyes? Because that's what I'm intentionally putting out there right now. Get yourself together.
Right. I see you.
I see you. And, you know, I'm a 31-year-old woman. I'm young, you know.
Right.
It's like you don't necessarily sometimes see that kind of thing come out. But as women, we have that power to tap into like, oh, no. That's not okay.
Yes, exactly.
No.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how old you are, you know. At a certain point as a woman, it's okay to be like, I am the creator and the mother of this earth. And I feel like this conversation is really getting out there. But I think about this stuff, you know. And it's like it's okay to put men in their place and not do it in a masculine way. We don't need to strong arm. We're not in battle with you guys. And we're something else. We're the mother.
Right. And it's okay too for them to be themselves, because when you look at,
look
at the way
pig,
everything,
put you in place.
Right. If you look at the way the history of the world right now, there are more women in medical school. So that's because we're nurturers. So there are more women becoming doctors. In Sweden, I think there's some where they've really made everything as equal opportunity as possible. And it's really broken into where women are more in healthcare.
Right. I mean, I'm in music education.
Yeah,
you know?
men like objects, and they create the iPhones and the things, like they make the things. And we like those things. There's things that we like that men have created. And women like people and relationships, and they're good with that. Yeah. And so I think celebrating both of everybody's accomplishments and strengths are good, and not trying to fight over one being wrong and one being right. It's like, it's okay, know. But I definitely think that we've lost our power somehow with trying to be men because it doesn't feel right. And that's why I
just
think
feel like it makes my heart palpitate. I feel like I'm tired. I feel stressed. And then I also just want to acknowledge one thing so we can make sure that we're acknowledging all our listeners. When we're talking about male and female, we're talking about mostly masculine and feminine energy. So whatever it is that you identify with. Right. I think these philosophical conversations are about the masculine energy and the feminine energy. Right. Because, whatever you physically identify with, that's kind of where we're going with this.
Right,
not
exactly.
necessarily creating this is not a binary conversation. So,
right. Yeah. Yes. But I do think as well, it's been through, that's what, there's a lot of data on it all, so it's really interesting. But I think that's why it's really important for you to know who you are. Yeah. I think you should be your most fascinating person. You should be.
Who am I?
Yeah.
Who I love.
It's pieces of the puzzle. And I've been through Al-Anon. So we were talking about AA. I've been through Al-Anon for I think 6 years now. And what I always loved about an Al-Anon was that somebody would share something and it would be like, oh, I realized I was at a family get together and I realized I really have a lot of resentment from my brother. Yeah. I really resent my brother. And she didn't say it like, I'm a bad person. I'm such a bad person.
It's like a discovery.
It was a piece of the puzzle.
I really resent my brother.
I resent. Now, why is that? Let's get to the bottom of that. Yeah. So be a person that you have been assigned to take care of,
Oh,
right?
Yes, Sally. Yeah. Wisdom.
But be the person that,
stopping it.
And and I was I'm bringing up all these TV shows, but I do watch. But The Crown was funny because you watch all the people.
I love The Crown.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. Yeah. I binged it, and so. Yeah. But those people that put the necklace on, and the person that brings the sandwich and all that. I like to be that person to yourself.
Yes.
Exactly. Put your clothes out. Put your clothes together. And so what I do sometimes is now I've been I'm going to
speaking my language.
Yeah, I'm going to do my laundry and then I'm going to hang everything all up.
Me too. I love it.
For her, because when she gets up, she's going to want to get dressed. Exactly. She's want to have her slippers right next to the bed. Yes. She's going to want her bed all nice and made, Yes. And so be in charge of that person. Yes. Like you are one of the, from Downton Abbey or whatever. And you pride yourself in your work to make sure that all her stuff is all.
Pride yourself in your space.
I did Marie Kondo too last year.
Oh, it really yeah, no. I definitely, that's another
so,
thing.
I went through that book and took notes and did the exercises, all the things, but.
No, I think it's a really important. And last year, I made one of my New Year's resolutions was to make my bed every morning because that was not something I ever did. Yep. That was something I did not do, and that made a huge.
This is my sacred space.
Huge thing.
It makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge
those little
difference.
Things that I love those little things that are just taking care of yourself.
Yep. So I want you to talk about what you are doing because I want you to say what it is that's coming up. But I wanted to give everybody homework on. So try and find. You can look at the books that we recommend, but then you can also maybe there's something that you've been putting off that somebody's recommended, or you think you should read it and you keep forgetting, or you bought it and it's by your night table. Do it. Yeah. Do it because something inspired you to get that book.
This conversation has inspired you. Because I do think that one of the things that I am newly discovering and that I'm learning and settling into this year is that we sometimes when we're on our journey, we think we're searching for answers, or we're searching for people, or we're searching for experiences, or searching for opportunities. And right now where I'm at personally in my journey is like, I realize that mostly everything's around me all the time. Like there's actually no more searching to be done. It's just about like connecting with the people that are around me. And so in that vein, like you could be in that part of your journey too, where it's like, the answers are all around you, and it's just you being open to listening to your intuition, and then like taking that course or reading that book.
This is Dorothy at the end of Wizard of Oz, right?
Exactly.
It's clicking the heels and is there all along.
It was there all along, you know? And I think that is a big part of the journey. I do love those stories that in the end where you realize like, oh, they was here all along.
Exactly. So what do you have going on? I want to give you a minute to say what you have going on.
Oh my gosh. I feel like my life has expanded so much. So the next course that I'm in right now, I'm in a course with Marcus Bell. He's Grammy award-winning producer. He's incredible, leader in the music industry. And I'm in his Wealth and Impact Boot Camp to kind of understand how to, raise my exposure and raise my impact on the world through everything that I'm up to. So that's a really fun course that I'm in. And I just launched my Patreon account. So you can look me up on Patreon and support me in everything that I'm doing.
Awesome.
Which is really exciting. And so what I'm doing, I'm going to have this interview be a launching point for something that Carly and I are building. So we are going to be booking some LA dates soon. I do have a venue in mind to do Swiped the Musical in partnership with a self-development, inner truth, creativity workshop afterwards as an evening, because Swiped is a one-act.
That's a great idea.
It'll be kind of tailored, probably mostly toward female creatives, but whoever is invited will do the show. We'll have a little break, mingle, and then we'll do a workshop afterwards.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm excited about performing and co-leading that with Carly at her theater company. And then I'm writing an audition songbook for women that is kind of like woke audition songs for girls. So like, high school, young women, I talk about like spirituality and relationships and love, conceptual songs, because the reason I got into it was because I'm listening to all these male songwriters, right? That's what I listen to, because that's what there is in my industry in musical theater, and all these like, the Beatles, whatever. It's a lot of masculine energy. And so I thought, well, what if I created a project that was like the same kind of vein as all these like old show tunes and stuff, but like really from the authentic female perspective. So that's a working title, Contemporary Songs for the Modern Day Diva.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it, right? I'm writing, in the process of writing a musical with Trace Oakley with Proved Out Closer, and then I have a TV pilot under my wings, which I'm so excited to release to the world. It does have to do with music education, and then a couple screenplays brewing. So there's just a lot going on.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great.
I'm very excited. And with my Patreon account, I am funding recording the Swiped soundtrack so everybody can listen to it, and taking the show to New York City.
Awesome.
Yeah, so.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yes, so that's my stuff.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot of stuff. I mean, who knows what I'll get done in 2020, but it might go beyond 2020, and I'm okay with whatever my journey is, whatever my path is. I know that
it's fun now, because who knows, right? Who knows? I mean, it's like podcasting. Who knew about this 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Yeah. Somebody was saying to me recently, we were talking about the people have a short attention span, and I said, oh, actually, that's actually not true. That's been proven to be not true, because with podcasting and things like that, people will sit and listen to something if they're interested enough. They'll listen to a book, they'll watch. They're hungry.
Humans are hungry for authentic
content. They're not. Yes. Yeah, they may not like a little soundbite in a dumb commercial.
Thank you.
but if anything touches them, they'll listen to it for hours. So so it's really important. So all right, that's great. Well, I hope you come back, and I hope we can talk about whatever else you're working on. And this was super fun.
This was amazing.
So we could do this again. We could talk about this again too.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about, and we can talk about more things. So enjoy I loved your sharing your Beatles journey. I'm glad I'm not the only person that goes down those rabbit holes. I do. I'll sit there and listen to
rabbit hole.
Those when you finally watch Marriage Story.
Okay,
There's a song. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to say any more about
I'll
it.
watch
And
it.
then I obsessed over that song. So it's I do that too. So I think it's great. So anyway, thanks everybody
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks and thank you so much for being on. And next week I'm going to have Angèle Cade back. She was a guest in my previous episodes, and she helps women. She helps anyone become incorporate and take care of their business and do all those things. But she also
we definitely need that.
She has a nonprofit where she takes underprivileged kids, like a handful of underprivileged kids, to another country, and like they dive into the culture, and she does all this cool stuff.
Incredible.
So she's very inspirational. She's also a mom of a special needs son who's adorable. So she just has a lot to share and a lot to offer. So she's going to be back on next week because I feel like I just scratched the surface with her last time. So go back and listen to her episode if you want to know more about her before we have her on tomorrow. And I think that's it. So thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
And we will talk again soon.
Again.